I'm really excited to have these two young women here today.
Thank you.
They found me, which was so exciting. Um, they are Karen Abe and Peggy Webb, a mother-daughter duo who have helped countless families turn real-life learning into transcripts. Peggy is the founder of West River Academy and has been supporting unschoolers for over 30 years. And Karen, unschooled all the way to college, now works alongside her, continuing the mission. And they're going to show us how to document everyday things that all our kids are doing that are so amazing, but how to put them into school speak and what they call transcripts and to be used to get into college or whatever thing they want to pursue. So please join me. I'm so excited that they're here, and welcome Peggy and Karen.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, thank you everybody. Thank you so much for coming here today. I'm Karen. I actually pronounce my last name Abe. It's Japanese. And so it has the Japanese pronunciation, but Abe works as well. So what we're wanting to talk with you about today, I'll just give you an idea of kind of how we envision the flow of this will go, and then we will see what actually happens, right? Because that's how life is. You have an idea, and then you see what really happens. But first, we're just going to share a little bit about us and our background, how we came about doing this, and what our life journey has been as succinctly as possible. And then we will talk more about just the content of turning life into subjects, what that looks like as an unschooler, how we kind of approach that both philosophically and practically. And then we'll go into, we have a handout for you of our high school transcript guidelines that we use, because high school is where it really gets tricky, right? Courses, credits, official names, what do you put on it to get into colleges and to present, that kind of thing. So we'll be explaining how we approach that as a school. And then we'll take your questions and see if there's anything in particular that you want to know in your life. You're like, how do I take what I'm doing with my kids? And I'm just really stuck in this one particular way. And we'll be happy to see if we can talk you through that. So does that sound good? You guys along for the ride? Okay. So like I said, I am Karen Abe, and this is my mother, Peggy Webb.
Hello, everybody.
And so let's just dive right in, actually. Why don't you share with us, Mom, a little bit about how you got started as an unschooling mom and what your journey through unschooling and beginning West River Academy, what that has looked like over the past 40 years of my life.
Yes, okay, I'll be succinct. Starting with ancient history in the 1980s, we were living in Ohio, and I had Karen, and I was teaching at the University of Toledo. I was teaching English as a second language, which I did for 7 years in Japan. So when I came back, they asked me to teach, and I said, okay, fine, but I had just given birth. And so I was nursing. And so between my nursing sections, I would run to the university, teach a couple classes, and come back. And I needed someone to take care of Karen at the time. And there was a lady who had 3 daughters, and she told me that she was unschooling them. She had just started. And I said, what is that? And she told me, well, just get the books by John Holt, read everything you can, and then ask me some questions. And so she had Karen for a couple hours. And I would go to see her, pick her up, watch the kids. They were doing a lot of Montessori type stuff. So they had all these things set up in their house. And so that was my beginning. And I was married to a Japanese person at the time who thought it would be the coolest thing to live in America and be a PTA dad. Because education in Japan, as you know, is very tough. And he had a really hard time. And he was just thought education here would just be cool. So he was all about being a school dad. But then I came back with him and I said, hey, would you take a look at these things by John Holt? When I read it, it was like I'd known this forever. It so resonated, right? So deeply that I'm like, well, this is natural. Like, why doesn't everybody do this? This is so easy. And so I said, I'm going to do this. So then I had to talk to my husband and say, well, what do you think about this? And he liked the idea. He was all on board. So that was one hurdle. And Karen was born in 1984. And by the time she was 5, and she thought the school bus was so cool and she really wanted to get onto it. But we said, nah, I don't think so. It's like, I wouldn't let her play in the middle of the street just because she thought that was fun. There's certain things that are just too dangerous to just let the child decide at that age. And I said, well, maybe when you're 10, we'll think about it. But you can go to this public school. I'll talk to the principal and we'll have you have a field trip and you can go check it out. So she went one day in 1st grade. And then she went one day in 2nd grade. And it was always the time when they were doing field trips and all the fun things to try to reel her in. And okay, thank you. Next year, do you want to go? Yeah, okay. So 2nd grade, she looked at it for one day. 3rd grade, I said, do you want to go? She goes, nah. And that was the end of it. And she unschooled her whole life. She never went to school, never stepped foot in a classroom until college. So that's basically the background. Now, when we lived in Ohio, I started a support group with another girl who took her kids out of school, and it was called the Home Education League of Perrysburg, because that was the town. And then as we expanded, we changed it to the Home Education League of Parents. So it was HELP, and we did a newsletter, and we did field trips and got everybody involved. And I looked into starting a school there, but you had to have a brick and mortar. So I gave up that idea. And then we moved to Colorado. Well, as soon as we got there, I started a support group. And of course, at the time, no internet. We just put an ad in the newspaper and say, meet at the library. So people came and we started the support group. And then I thought, well, now I'm going to look into the laws and see if I could start a school. And so lo and behold, there was the Colorado laws that basically said, yeah, there's only 4 laws, and all of them say, except one, say that the government has no business being involved. And I went, yay, I can do this. The last one said, you need to offer reading, writing, arithmetic, communication. And I thought, well, I can offer it, but they could say no. Yay, okay, I fulfilled the check boxes. I can start a school. So I said to all the support group families, well, would you like to pay me $25 and enroll your kids in my school that I just started, like now? And they said, well, sure. I said, what's the benefit? Well, you won't have to file with the school district as a homeschooler. You won't have to be subjected to the testing or the evaluation in grades 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11, which was the Colorado law. And they said, sounds good to me. So they paid me their $25. We got their kids enrolled. Well, now what do? I said, just keep doing what you're doing. Now you're legal. So that's how West River Academy got started. And that was in, I don't know, when was it? Oh, then my 3rd daughter was born in 1993. And so we decided at that point that we would call it the official starting of the school. So she's now 32, and that means the school is 32. So that's how long it's been going. Now, we started in Colorado, and then we moved to California. So we opened up a branch there. And we basically said, you can do whatever you want. We got you covered legally. You're in our bubble. And to the public, our website says, we customize the educational program for every child and blah, 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 blah. But in our bubble, it's keep doing what you're doing. We won't call you, you call us if you need us. And we only asked for a year-end report because one of the parents said, well, isn't there anything that you require? I said, not really, but well, maybe we can ask you to send us a summary of what your children learned. So we called that a requirement, but it actually was not mandatory, and we didn't care if they sent them in or not. But we did recommend it because I did that when Karen was 6 years old. I just made a ton of lists of things that she learned, and we put them under categories. Reading books would go under English, and counting and things would go under math. And I just looked at all the different things that we did and thought, oh my gosh, she learned so much more than if she had ever been in school. And that was the end. I never made a record after that because I hated writing things down and trying to remember, so we always had scrapbooks and field and places we went and photos and things, but I never wrote down any kind of report. And I thought, well, my moms in the group in the school, they might not want to either. So let's just make it optional. So it's like, if you feel that it will be valuable to you, then send us a report and we'll keep it on file. But if it's just tedious work, don't do it. We want you to spend time with your kids, not documenting everything. If you need a transcript, we'll help you get one for whatever purpose. But we don't recommend it because why are you just going to keep it as a memento? You know, if you're going to go back to school, we can help you with a transcript. If you want to go to college, we can help you with a transcript. So that's how we kind of devised the school to be, we call it the Unschooler School, because if you need us for legal reasons, we're here, but just keep doing what you're doing. So he had a question. Did you want to ask?
Yeah. Name of your school in Colorado
It-
and where in Colorado? I'm from Colorado.
Oh, okay. It's West River Academy, and we started it in Grand Junction, Colorado. Yeah. Okay. Did I do enough?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great outline and overview of kind of like how it came into being. And then we've continued to do that. So just to share a little bit about myself, I grew up obviously within this environment of being able to have the freedom to really pursue my passions and my interests since I was a young child. So for me, that looked like I started with soccer and gymnastics, and then horseback riding became an early passion from the moment I rode my first pony, Dandy. And I was just hooked. And it was just horses, 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 horses. So I joked that I grew up in a barn. I really pretty much did. I would ride, I'd get up. I was like, what, 10, 11 years old in Colorado. And I'd get up on my own with my alarm at the break of dawn. I'd ride my bike like a mile down to the farm because she wasn't going to get up at that time. So if I wanted to get to the barn in time to feed the horses, I had to get up, do my chores. Don't forget. Dishes better be put away before I leave. Don't from the dishwasher. Get on my bike, ride down to the barn, and then start cleaning out the stalls and feeding the horses and doing all of that, right? So I grew up with a lot of really learning responsibility in that way, and being very in charge of and self-managed for my own education, for my own interests, for making my own passions happen. And yeah, it included, you know, all of the things that we love to do. It included sports. It included being a voracious bookworm and weekly trips to the library, getting a stack of books this big every week, all of that. And we had like different, you know, books around the house or workbooks around the house. I remember teaching myself a times table by being like, you know what, I think it's time I learned this. Some of the other kids know it and I need to know it. And so I took a deck of cards, and every night before bed, I would just like pull 2 cards and be like, okay, what is this times this, and 5 times 3 and 9 times 2. And I would just practice it on my own. She never told me to. I was like, how am I going to learn my times table? This seems like a fun way. And so that was the game I played. So I really was able to have that freedom to choose how I wanted to learn things and make up my own games to do so. As I became a teenager, I got really hooked on swing dancing, because this was the late 90s and swing dancing was just starting up in a big craze. And so there was a little bunch of teens were getting together in kind of the local hall, and they would get together every Friday night. And a friend of mine invited me, and she said, okay, you can go with these friends. I trust these people, some other homeschooling kids. And it was run by a family of homeschoolers. And I just got hooked. And then from that, I really learned World War II history and music and jazz and dance. And then the other family decided that they got burnout, closed down their club. And then I picked up and was like, well, I still want to dance. And I looked around at my friends and we were all dancers. And I was like, let's start our own club. So we found our own little hall that charged us $25 a week. And I was like, okay, if I can get 5 friends to put in $5, we can cover rent and we can show up and dance. So I started my own business. And I ran that club for like 2 years. Every week we held a weekly dance, and we started raising money. I started charging more, bought the decorations, would go every week, set up everything. I learned to DJ. I learned about the music. I was teaching dance. Beginning to end, it was our dance club. And so that was a really big like entrepreneurial learning experience for me in my teen years when I was like 16, 17, 18 years old. And so then I decided at 18-ish that I was like, okay, I think I want to give college a try. Like, I want to see what that's like. And so then there was this whole like, in all of the things that I'd done, algebra had never really rated on my priority list. It was just like, I was too busy running my own business. And I was like, I didn't care about algebra at all. But then I had to take this test, and I had to take the ACT, and then it was going to matter what class I got placed into in college. So I talked to my mom about it, and then she's like, oh, you know, I talked to this guy, and he's a retired math tutor, and maybe he can help you out. So I started doing twice a week math tutoring with him specifically to prep for the ACT. And about 3 months, I learned all that I needed to know of algebra 1, 2, and geometry to be able to place into college level math. Right? So once I was ready to, I didn't have to spend 30 minutes a day or 2 hours a day for 4 years learning what I needed to know. I needed to spend that amount of time over the course of 3 months when my brain was mature. I already got it. I got the concepts instantly, immediately. They made sense. I didn't struggle. I learned what I needed to learn so that I could pass the test that I needed because I was driven. I was motivated. It was my idea to go to college. So if I wanted to, how was I going to accomplish that? And I just did what needed to be done for that. So then I took the ACT. I didn't get super high scores in it, but I got like just high enough to be able to get into that college math course. And I'm like, okay, that's all that matters because I don't want to spend money on a high school math course. I don't want to pay college for a high school math course that's not even giving me a credit. That seemed dumb to me. So I was like, I want to at least get into that college level math. Then I continued through my college career and was able to go all the way through calculus and business math and everything, economics, do all of that once I was in college. So really then it became the process. This was kind of I think maybe one of the first transcripts we created. So to bring that up, kind of segue into that direction now. The first transcripts we created was for me and going, okay, what have I been interested in? What have I been doing? And how are we going to put this on a transcript that we can give to the college for me to apply? And so, there was creative writing on there for an English course. I actually brought my transcript with me to reference before here. I'm just like, what did we do? And so we had, we found all of these different ways. Like I've been really interested in Greek mythology. And so we call that ancient history. I've been, and then of course my dance, my PE and my entrepreneurship and business math. Right? Those were all some of the course names that we took what I had been doing in my high school years and to put onto a transcript. So let's go ahead and start talking a little bit more about that process. So Peggy, if you're an unschooler, how do you get these subjects from people's life learning onto the transcript? What does that process look like?
Well, it's the opposite of what you do in school. So in school, you take a course and you get the textbooks, you do the assignments, you take the test, and you get a grade. Well, with unschooling, you do life, you learn stuff that you want to learn, and then you do the very unnatural thing, which is trying to figure out what course names it goes into. Now, the cool thing, though, is that one activity can span a whole bunch of courses. You could be listening to a Greek mythological tale while you're running. So you've got PE and you've got English. So all the activities that you do, if you think about just breaking them up into subject areas, which is very unnatural, but that's what colleges want to see. That's what high schools want to see. So we do the backwards thing. We do life and then we figure out what to call it. Then we put a credit to it, which is standard for what high schools are expecting with credits. And then you subjectively give yourself a grade. Now the grade can be straight A's because why? Because when you choose to do something you're passionate about, you're learning it. You don't have to be tested on it. Kids in school, they're tested and then they forget the next day. But with us, we learn and we retain. Therefore, we can give ourselves an A easily because it's natural. Now, the grade can be A, for 90 or 100, up to 90 to 100, B, 80 to 89, etc. And you subjectively sit down and go, well, now, if I was going to compare my knowledge in this area at this grade 9 level or grade 10 level, compared to all the 9th or 10th graders in the world that are studying this subject, or even in the United States, where would I put myself? Well, think about kids that are passed through. They can't even read and write and they're graduating from high school, So don't think about, well, I use the example of auto mechanics. To get an A in auto mechanics 1, you don't have to have built a car from the beginning to the end and have it roadable. You simply have to learn the basics. How do you change the oil and how do you check the brakes and basic things. And then compared to everybody else that might be taking an auto mechanics course, number one, beginning level, where would you put yourself? So you have to be sure that you don't grade yourself too hard. And it's interesting, but homeschoolers tend to do that. You know, they'll be the kids who are grading themselves will say, well, I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that, so maybe a C. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, look at all you've done and compare that to kids in school that are basically doing it because they have to be there. You're not a C, you're an A, you know. Oh, well, yeah, I never think about that. And the moms too, sometimes are like, well, he didn't quite master all of this. Like he still has a couple things he hasn't quite gotten right. It's like, that's okay. A B's fine. You know, if you don't want to give him an A, give him a B. But, you know, C doesn't look too good because it's a 2.0. So try to keep things in the A and B range, and it's not cheating. Your kids know so much more than kids going into college as a freshman. So that's how we do the grading part. Now, as far as the activities, it's basically, we have some ideas here, and you can shout out any activities that you think that you would like to know, have a name for, and we'll try to help you with what we would call it. But for example, English, if you think about English, you need 4 years of that, right? English 9, 10, 11, 12, language arts 9, 10, 11, 12, whichever name you prefer. And we just want to be sure that the names are going to be recognizable as legitimate high school courses. And it doesn't have to be every single high school in the United States, obviously, but some high schools, they vary in what they call things. And so just we need a name that's going to be somewhat standard. Okay, so that consists of reading, writing, speaking, listening comprehension, vocabulary, literature, everything to do with learning the English language. So if you come home from school or come home from whatever you're doing and you are talking about your day, that's English because you're communicating. You're using vocabulary. Karen used to read these books like nonstop. That was what she did for pleasure when she was not in the stables. And I would be cooking in the kitchen and she'd come in and she would tell me the entire book she just read from beginning to end while I was cooking. I couldn't do anything to discourage that. So I do admit I half paid attention, but I was cooking also. But there's English, and I didn't have to ask her to write a book report. No, I couldn't tell her to stop. So I got the book report, but it was oral and she was expressing herself and she would tell me what she thought about the book. And there's a critical analysis. Explaining how to do something is another thing that's so much part of our unschoolers' lives. Somebody explains it to you, you learn it, you explain it to other people, you have all the English skills going on there. How many of you do YouTube videos? And you have to write your script and you have to talk to the audience. That's English. Listening to someone explain how to do something, reading instructions and then being able to complete a task. That's English. Finding out the meaning of a new word or expression because you ask somebody, what does that mean? And they tell you, and now you have a new vocabulary word. Or you are reading and you come across a word that you don't know, so you look it up and now you have a new word. I never gave my kids spelling tests or vocabulary tests. I thought that was the stupidest thing. I thought either you're born a good speller or you're not, and there's nothing you could do about it, right? So, or you're taking a lesson, like Karen took piano lessons, and so she had to pay attention to the teacher, listen to what she said, follow instructions, and then play the piano. She also taught lessons. So when she was doing her, she taught piano, but she also taught dance. Yeah. So as a teenager, you know, she was instructing other people, and this communication happens in the real world way more than it does in school. So to give yourself an A in English 9, 10, 11, and 12 is perfectly fine. It's not dishonest. You may not have read all the literature that they had in those grades, but you read stuff that mattered to you and you retained it. Maybe you didn't read Catcher in the Rye in 9th grade. So what? You know, how's it going to hurt your life?
I did love the Iliad and the Odyssey. Like I said, I got
read
into
the Greek
mythology and I got into poetry and I got into all of that.
So that's just an idea of how you take your activities and you call them names.
Yeah.
A couple other things will go with history or social studies. If you visit museums, if you watch a historical film, You might read the US Constitution and the Bill of Rights, you know, because they don't do that in school. um, you might read biographies or autobiographies of historical figures, like go read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. You'll get a lot of history, American history there. You can discuss laws, current events, what's going on now. It's much more relevant. You can listen to podcasts, which is big right now. If you're political or not political, you listen to what's really going on and believe it, not believe it. Use your critical thinking skills to analyze for yourself. If this is something believable, it's not believable, you need to express discernment. And then, of course, traveling. And we have a lot of world schoolers in West River Academy because they've got their little paper that says, I am confirmed enrolled in West River Academy. I'm in school. I take this paper wherever I go. And if anybody asks, I show them that I am enrolled in a legitimate school. So it keeps them out of trouble. Now for math, question? Go ahead, please. Yeah, that's a good one. Think about it, Karen. I'll go through this and then she'll come up with a good one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so math, there's a really cool course name now called integrated math that they teach in the high schools. Well, that's like math throughout all life,
Real world.
whatever real world math. And nobody tells you what the content is, but you go take that course at high school and it appears on your transcript. And the cool thing about transcripts is when you present them to colleges, nobody asks you what the content is. So your world geography could be traveling all over the world, not reading and learning capitals of countries. So integrated math can include anything that has to do with math. And you can have maybe Roman numeral 1 that you do in grade 9 and integrated math 2 in grade 10. And now you're done because you only need 2 credits minimum of history, math, and science. You could have 3. And if you really want to get into a great school, go for 4, but you don't need 4 credits of every single subject area, just English.
I think we have a question back over here.
Yeah.
When you're talking about naming these subjects, you have to get super detailed or
Just English. Yeah. Well, now math, so we kind of go along to what high schools generally do. Because when we issue the transcript, who's it for? It's for college admissions. Nobody else cares about transcripts. They may want to see a high school diploma to show you've graduated, but nobody asks for transcripts except technical schools or, secondary higher education. So let's see, what was I just saying?
Integrated math and math courses?
No, the specific, yeah. So the content can be anything, but the name will represent what you actually learned. So if you want to do like a college prep program for math, it's going to be Algebra 1, grade 9, Geometry, grade 10, Algebra 2 and Trigonometry, grade 11, Pre-Calculus, grade 12. And that's if you want 4 credits. Otherwise, that's the college prep route. But if you don't want to do that, like Karen didn't, you can have still your 2 minimum credits, but you're calling it integrated math or personal finance or business math or consumer math, or financial literacy. These are all more practical, and they're calling them non-college prep because if you want to go to an Ivy League school, they want to see the college prep courses. But if you want to use it just to show that you have the minimum number of math credits to get into a community college, 2 credits is fine. They see 2 maths, they're good. And they're not going to ask you to detail everything you learned in that course. No high school kid has ever asked that, right? And with our transcript, you are applying as a private school student. You're not applying as a homeschool student. You tend to have less scrutiny because unless the college actually looks us up and sees that we're accredited by an alternative school accrediting agency, they don't really care. They see our very nice transcript. It's signed, it's dated, it's sealed, everything. Put it up on Parchment. Parchment.com is where you can go to create an account and then upload your transcript. And then it's sent to the school, just like every other school does. and they see, oh, it's a transcript. They have a 3.2 GPA. They got all the courses. They got 4 English, 2 to 3 history, math, science.
Yeah, we'll go over that with the
2 PE.
guidelines
Yeah.
in just a minute.
So they see everything that's there and they go, okay, they got a legitimate transcript. But you're never going to be asked to describe what you learned in every course. So that's up to you,
Mhm.
right? Could be anything.
Yeah. Do you want to go over the rest of these and then we can do the handouts?
Yeah. So we're at science.
Mhm.
So some science things, just like integrated math, there's integrated science. And you can have integrated science 1, integrated science 2. If you're really into animals, like my little granddaughter Lily loves animals, right? Then we have animal science. And Karen, what she was doing with horses, she was doing intro to veterinary science because she was doing all the things with the feed and the
Worming.
medicine, the worming, all the things, deworming,
Deworming.
all the things. So animal science is a really good one for that. You can have health if you're into plants and gardening and growing herbs and treating people with herbal remedies. That can be botany. You have veterinary science if you're working with the animals as well. If you want, if you don't want the college prep courses of biology, chemistry, and physics, you could have life science instead of biology. You can have physical science instead of physics. If you're involved with the environment, environmental science, marine biology. So there's many kinds of sciences that you can do. If you're learning about the body and its functions, you have anatomy and physiology. So there's a lot of sciences and you only need 2 on your transcript, minimum, right? Then you have to have, usually they want a half a credit of government or civics. So you can read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and realize that we don't abide by any of them anymore and talk about why. Anything along that line that has to do with the workings of the government, civics, learning about civil rights, all of that. You can watch the movie 1776. That will be part of your civics or your US history. And then the last thing you can do is take college courses, which I know in Oregon you have a path to community college. Well, if you take any college courses, then we will put that on our transcript and we list it as a college course. So a 1 semester course equals 1 credit, as if it were a high school annual, a yearly course in high school is equal to a semester of college. And if it's a college level course, then you will get an extra grade point. Just like if you take an AP course in high school, they give you an extra grade point. If you take a college course, you get an extra grade point. So you can graduate with a 4.3, not just a 4.0 for straight A's. Okay? So that's kind of the basic idea of how you can take some of the activities, call them stuff, put them in under that course name, assign a credit, and assign a grade subjectively.
All right, so AB team, would you be able, Connor, to go ahead and give the handouts? Sorry, are you involved in something? So we have a little handout for you here on, this is our high school transcript guidelines. So what she was just verbalizing, we'll explain a little bit more detail. And this just kind of is something that we wanted to give you because we know you're not necessarily going to work with us, nor do we ask you to. We're just explaining how we do it at our school, but for you to be empowered so that you can kind of start having an idea for your kids as they start entering the high school years specifically, like, okay, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And what kind of thing, what do we want to put on the transcript? So why don't you talk a little bit about a little more about kind of like the college path versus non-college path, because you might have a kid that knows he wants to be an engineer, right? And he's just like, I want to go to school of mines, I want to be an engineer and I want to do that. And so what he does through high school might be like, okay, well, we're going to need to do a little more specific studying on some specific engineering skills and math and spend some time on that, right? Still can be very unschooling because it's still his desire to be an engineer, but that might involve cracking a little bit more of a textbook and really learning what he needs to so that he can be on a path to be able to apply to a high-level engineering school to pursue his passion for that. right? So it could be going into a college, or you could have a child that really just is into performing arts and has no interest or desire for math and just wants to be a dancer or an actress or a painter. And, you know, trying to get through calculus is just a ridiculous goal for her because that's just not going to make any sense for her life, right? So as your child gets older, you'll have an idea of what their natural talents and aptitudes are and where they might want to go. We're very much a proponent that the transcript is meant to be the passport to get them where they want to go. It doesn't validate their learning. It's not about did they do enough or get the right straight A's. It's about what do we need to have on this piece of paper when this child graduates, or for whatever reason we're using it, to present to the authorities so that they are given access to where they want to go. That's the purpose of the transcript, right? And so as you're approaching and going through their high school years, you can really be thinking about, okay, what are we going to want to put on this when we get to the end of it for what this child's goals and dreams and aspirations are. So,
Okay. First, I don't want to forget about gaming. So you have a course named gaming, which you can put on your transcript as an elective. Now, if your child has been taking courses online or learning gaming specific kinds, just go to some websites where they are teaching gaming and find out what they're calling them. And then if your child has learned that content, then use that name. As long as it's out in the public domain, you know, as a course name, a high school could be offering it as an elective. So, and especially I wanted to speak to the purpose of the transcript. When you've just finished at age 18 and you want a transcript and you know what you're going to use it for, then we can customize or tailor the transcript for the intended purpose. Because a lot of kids, when they're 14, they have a certain idea of what they want to do, but then they're 18 and everything changes and they want to do something completely different, right? So we always encourage people not to make any official transcript until you graduate, because once we issue it, we can't take it back. And if you were focused in music when you were 9 and now you're not in grade 12, grade 9 now, grade 12 you're not, then we're kind of stuck with whatever you put down for grade 9 because we can't change it because we issued it. So we always tell people don't make it until you need it. Now, when you need it, what's it for? Who's going to see it? What door do you want it to open? Because honestly, the transcript is simply to open a door. That's it. And you're going to do it honestly, because now you know that your life experiences do have names that can be attached to them, and it's real and it's honest. So you're not cheating. Some people ask that. Wasn't it cheating if I say this and I didn't do that? Well, yeah, if you put Algebra 1 on there and you never opened an algebra book or took a Khan Academy course, then yeah, it's cheating. But pick a different thing. Pick integrated math.
Okay, that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
So are we making the transcript kind of divorced from what we actually did and getting it? So like you're saying, if you're really into music in grade 9, by 12 you're not, are you not going to put it on your transcript, or are you tailoring your transcript at grade 12 for where you want to go at age 12, kind of filling in something different for age or grade 9?
Well, think of the transcript as a summary. So it's a representation of your 4 years. It's not a chronological blow-by-blow account. What did I really do when I was 14? I've got to get everything in there. No, you don't. Especially if you're doing it when you're 18, you go, well, what did I do for the last 4 years? And where do I want to put it on this transcript? And how is it going to make the transcript look balanced? So if you refer to the guidelines here, you know, you have to have 4 credits of English. And then you have to have at least 2 of history, math, and science over the 4-year period. You need 2 credits of physical education, half credit of government, and a half credit of health. That's very basic. Other than that, it's all electives. And you can put them any place you want. So don't think that, oh, I have to get every little thing that my kid learned on here because otherwise, like, it's not complete. A lot of people don't really care about some of the stuff that we care about. So to put it on the transcript isn't going to help your case. You know, you might think it's so important that I did all this jewelry and I sold it and I had a business and everybody just loved my art and it's been in museums. And They don't care unless you're going into an art program. And then you have a portfolio. We had a girl get into the Art Institute of Chicago. She had an amazing portfolio, and they cared way more about that than all of the, she took, like, she was overachieving, taking college courses and everything. But that helped, of course, because that was a very, prestigious institution, but it's the portfolio. And the same thing if you're into music, it's how is your music? And having a transcript is simply the representation of your high school career, and it's only to open a door. So don't get too detailed about having a blow-by-blow account of the brilliance of my child. Got to make sure everything is there. That's not important.
And we also, just to your point, we also are we view it as being able to put it at any point in the transcript. So for example, I learned Algebra 1 maybe at age 17, kind of doing a crash course for the high school ACTs, right? I still put it in my 9th grade Algebra 1 because that's where it belongs. And I learned it. So does it really matter if I said that I did Algebra 1, 2, and everything in 12th grade? That would look weird. Why would I do that? So I put it in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, where it belongs, because I learned it all by the end of 12th grade. So we kind of look at more just like, what did the student learn by the end of all 4 years? Then what boxes? Oh, we have an empty box here. We need to fill in with the math. Great, you've learned this. We're going to fill in this box in this grade.
Yeah.
Right. But because you've come to the end of the 4 years and you've learned everything that you have on there. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if you look at the grid here, you can see the review that we're looking for 21 to 29 credits. Now, 21 is usually your basic minimum. We don't want our kids to have more than 29 because then colleges are like, why do you have 42 credits?
How do you have time for that?
You're still in high school and you have 42 credits. How did that happen? We don't want questions. We don't want red flags. Just pass it through. Question?
Yeah, is that number of credits based on a requirement for the states that you're operating?
No, well, it's not really state. It's more high school.
Is it a standard across the country, like what the typical amount of credits?
Not really. There's schools that, like correspondent schools, that only want 15 or 16 credits and they give you the diploma.
That's ours through the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. So ours is
Okay.
state government.
For public schools. Yeah, and we're private.
That's true.
So we don't have to follow what the public schools require of public school kids. So now, who's it for? Again, who's going to see it? What door do you want to open? Okay, so that's why we say between 21 and 29, it's good. We recommend around 25, and then it's going to just pass through, no questions asked.
And that quantity breaks down really well with the way that we have our four subjects that have 1 credit each, and then for each one, and then the right amount of electives. So this quantity also breaks down year by year into what makes sense.
And we say 7.25 would be the maximum per year to give you 29 over 4 years. 5.25 would be the minimum per year to give you 21 total. So that range. We really don't want it to go over 7.25 because, again, why? How did you have time to do this? And more questions. Okay, so now if you look at the distribution, you can see that English or language arts, 4, you really need 1 per year. But the others, history, math, and science, you just need 2 minimum, 4 maximum. Government half, health half, physical education 2, which we usually recommend a half credit per year. And, run around, do exercises, whatever you do is PE, so it doesn't really matter. And if you're short 1 year and you're heavy another year, then put your PE where you need it. So, just like Karen said. And then the electives would be between 5 and 8. And then if you go courses by grade, here's like a typical layout for grade 9. You'll have English or language arts, and then some kind of history, world history, world geography, whatever it is, US history. Then the next one would be government or civics, which kids tend to take early on, but you could have it in grade 12. Algebra 1 or integrated math, whether you're college prep or non-college prep. Biology or life science, college prep, non-college prep. Physical education, half a credit. and then electives. And there's some examples of culinary arts, life skills, and foreign language. If you're going to take a foreign language, usually it's a full credit for each level of the language. So if you're taking Spanish 1, it's 1 credit. Then the next year, Spanish 2 is 1 credit. And so grade 10, again, we have English, history, the health is a half a credit. You only need it once. Then geometry for the math or integrated math, chemistry or integrated science, PE, and then some electives, photography, digital media, music. These are just electives across the board, just as ideas. And grade 11, you've got your English, some kind of history, and then math, then science, PE, and electives. So that's pretty much the way it's going to be structured. Now, by the time you're done with grade 11, you've gotten most of your credits. As you know, with seniors, they'll take 2 credits and they're done because they've done it all. So that's the same thing here. In grade 12, you can put English. Now, economics is considered a history course, and interestingly, so is psychology. In the Denver public schools, they have psychology under the
Social
history.
science. History, social science, yeah.
Yeah. So, and economics also. So maybe you took it, maybe you didn't. And then you have math, science, physical education, and more electives.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah.
So you guys are running this as a private school, so these are transcripts coming from a private school.
Right.
Do you have any feedback or knowledge on how this kind of transcript from a homeschooler, is it accepted at the same rate without the same questions, or due to the?
We don't know. I saw, what's that website? One of our students, one of our moms mentioned it, that one of her kids went to a website.
There's some sort of homeschool transcript builder website.
It was a transcript builder, something transcripts.com. Maybe I'll think of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to, very quickly, I had to make a 9th grade transcript. It was basically just substantive and the legal boxes. And the counselors really just need something to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and it really is,
Yeah.
again, it's who is looking at it and who's making the decision and what do they want to see and what will they accept.
So I was going to ask.
Yeah.
My daughter is a junior and has gone part-time in Washington Public School for freshman sophomore. Full-time this year. Some unknown reason was diploma. And now the school is giving us pushback because they want to know what the curriculum is. And I've just been ignoring them at this point, but I'm not quite sure what to say because she's in sport, we've been having to do
Right.
transcripts so that the school, the sports has, like she's the same level, qualifying to play. So they have the transcript from our homeschool, but now I'm getting pushback about what is the, integrated math, what does that cover, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. So I would love some ideas.
In my district, she went full-time for a week. Good.
Oh, wait.
She went full-time at the home because in our state, the homeschool need any facility or any purpose for the.
Okay, great.
You can still be in control of the transcript. The school only wants to take you over the phone through. So, but there's other like the Washington School organization of the transcript. So you can still maintain control.
Yeah, we've talked to the WHO about how do we keep the line where we say homeschoolers and not.
Right, so
public learning.
from my experience, we have access to their schools, access to, but we can still maintain control of our transcripts. And I wanted to do that because for Stanford. But I wanted to be the one to say what was, we wanted to, she wants to get into all that stuff, so focus for prep, what she wants to do. And then hopefully get that into what they're
Reverse engineering from Stanford.
So, and that's a really great word because that's basically all of this is, right? Reverse engineering. And that's even what I would say about your question. Just reverse engineer it. Go look up what integrated math is supposed to have. What do they want to hear? And then go figure out how, if your daughter needs to learn that to back it up, what she's gonna do to learn that to back it up. Maybe she needs to go to Khan Academy and do a little bit of these specific, okay, it's supposed to have, she's supposed to learn these particular things. Great, go get a book, find something online, just have her be like, okay, you need to learn these formulas. That's that, right? And so figure out what it is that they're asking for, they're needing. And then if they're absolutely requiring it and she's bound and determined to have that diploma through them that looks like that, then she might have to do some of the work that goes with that, right? And she might have to do that at home as part of the homeschool. So it's a balance, right? Because this is the whole thing. We're working in between two worlds, right? All of us, that's the thing. And that's what we're working on doing. That's what the school is for, is to be a bridge in between the two worlds. Right? So we can have the maximum freedom, but still be able to have the pieces of paper that the 3D matrix world really, really loves. Yes.
Quick thing about that and then another question, but I think a tool like ChatGPT can be really helpful to
Yeah.
give us the language
For sure.
that is going to be understood and offered out. My question is about timing and like ages. If you have a feel for a student who is, you know, not starting college, maybe they're starting college at 19 or more like 20 or 21. Are you still, is it best to still create the transcript as if they were in high school at the age and then sort of time off? Any feel for how?
We often do that. So we do have students that come to us at grade at age 20, 21, 22. They're like, I dropped out in 11th grade. I really want a diploma because now I finally figured out what I want to do and I want to go to college. And we actually do believe that it's best to keep it sequential. And so we'll backdate the graduation date so that their 12th grade graduation date is the year after their 11th grade completed, or whatever previous grades they need. And so we do retroactive enrollment that way, is what we call it, retroactive enrollment. Or we're like, oh yeah, you were enrolled with us for 2021, 22. That's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what we did. And you graduated that year, and here's your diploma and your transcript that you need. And we'll just pretend that happened then, and you've been doing what you want since then and are now deciding to go on to school. Because aside from the date on the piece of paper, how does anyone know? What does it matter, and how do they know?
And gap years
Mhm.
are treated so much differently.
Yes.
Oh, you've done your requirement, high school,
Right.
now you gap year, very
Yes.
cool.
Oh, and you traveled, and you did this, and you started your own business. That's great.
Gap year?
Right. Yeah. So we do usually encourage and pretty much recommend, require that we do backdate it. And so that way, again, we want the piece of paper to look as good as we can to portray the student in the best light possible to where they're trying to go to. Right. Yeah.
Do you have any knowledge about financial aid and how in college it is different for, say, a grad school diploma versus accredited?
No. We don't really get involved in financial aid. One thing I did learn with the SAT or the ACT, they stopped making it mandatory for a lot of students because of all the things surrounding it. But they do require it for financial aid, which is, yeah, that's what I thought.
So it's backdoor.
Yes.
Yes.
The colleges aren't requiring it, but if you want money to go to college, then you need to take it. And the colleges are
Oh,
going to
really?
require it again next year.
Are they?
This is the
Okay.
thing too,
Never know.
is it's constantly changing, right? It's always in flux. What is working, what is not working. And so what we know is because people are telling us that
Yeah.
are real world in it with students that they're in the middle of doing, and they're like, this is what we have to do. For us, we also work with the Common App system, which is utilized pretty, broadly across the US. And that also helps students going through us as an official private school in the Common App system, because then we can submit their transcripts and their counselor recommendation letters and everything through that system. So it looks very official for them. But that is one of the things, weighing homeschool versus being with a private school or umbrella school of some sort. And again, for each, it really just depends on doing the research to go, what specifically am I trying to do and trying to go? What do they want and how do I reverse engineer it so I can get there?
You also said, don't make it until you need it. My daughter's going into 9th grade, and in Washington, we have the Intercollegiate Athletic Administration or something that oversees all involvement in extracurriculars, sports, drama club, glass blowing studio, and you have to maintain academic eligibility by hitting a certain grade on that.
Wow.
So when when you have to have that year by year, or in this case, semester by semester thing
Mhm.
of your academic record, should we still kind of go with a,
I mean, again,
think about it
don't,
this way and
I would make it as general as possible. Now, also, there was a person that needed it, something like what you said, but we could write a letter that said, the student is enrolled with us and is taking these courses and so far has achieved this grade. That's a letter, but it's separate from a transcript.
You
So
don't have
we
to
can
be-
fudge a little bit by saying, for that particular purpose, the letter states, or like for driver ed or something, the letter states this, but because it's not an official transcript, you still have some wiggle room at the end. Yeah. It must be a transcript.
yeah, it has to actually show all the credits.
Yeah, then you're kind of stuck with that if you're, yeah.
We've done that, had her in-school stuff and then her homeschool stuff, and now the school thing. Well, what was that? What are the details of it?
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, that's where we come in to save people that kind of trouble. Because even with college applications, if you say you're a homeschooler, then you're put into a certain category and they scrutinize more. They want more information. They want the names of the courses. They want the details, like how did you do it and how did you evaluate?
What curriculum did you
And
choose?
especially if you're unschoolers, like it's almost next to impossible. So we say, you know, enroll with us, we give you a transcript and nobody asks those questions because now it's a private school, it's not a homeschool.
you opening up in Washington.
Well, we serve the
Well,
world.
We serve the world.
We
I
have
do-
Washington students, we already, yeah.
However, we do talk to us after because I did
Yeah.
have a family consultation from Washington, and Washington is, they're very interesting in the way they do homeschooling in Washington. And I think that there might be a little bit, like you have to be an approved private school in Washington officially. So I don't know for sure if for this intercollegiate stuff, if our transcript would be accepted.
Yeah.
Because I think Washington has a list of approved private schools. And I think you have to do something to get on that list. So I need to look into that further for all of you Washington families to see if our private school like would suffice for what you're trying to do for us, if us specifically, if we can help you with that. We would love to, and this isn't a plug for us, we just want to help you in any way we can. But I don't actually know, to be completely transparent, if we can. So I would research that myself first, and you can as well.
It's a lot easier to get the student out of school into our school, even in states where, like Washington, say you have to be this, and Hawaii is another state, which it's on the books that you have to be this, but no one pays that much attention to it. So once we get
Right.
them out, we send a request to transfer records from our school to your school. This student is coming from there to here. Send us the records, please. And normally they do. They don't ask questions. But if you're trying to work with the district, that's where it's tricky. And
Right.
we
It's that bridging
probably
of
can't help
worlds
you.
where you're trying to have the
Yeah.
kids in the extracurriculars, and then they're wanting to have all of the proof and trying to bridge that. And that's just, I don't know if our school will be able to help you with that, based on what, again, what are they going to require and accept?
The Washington public school people, meaning administrators and people involved in it, don't understand homeschool laws at all. And so they will ask what they think they need to have, and we have to push back against
Right.
it, saying, you can't ask for that,
Mhm.
or you're not entitled to that. I don't have to, you know, so they're like, well, I don't know if we want you in our school then. It's like, well, you can't keep us out. So yeah, it's very difficult working with them. They don't know our laws.
Right.
I will tell you that when I went to talk to the counselor, they started to be like, oh, I don't know what we can do. What I did is I printed out the RCW.
Yep.
And I acted out, I got that on top of the board. And they were like, what's this? I was like, oh, I'm sorry. It's just they were just kind of like, oh, okay. And then like, what do you want to do? Here you go. So, but again, I wasn't going for the diploma to high school.
We weren't even initially, we're just only to use it to get soccer. Right, and we don't do those abuse, okay, like just to she into the first time she took at the school, she took baking, she took ceramics, just easier for her to stay athletic, to have a school issue, that 2.5 credits that she needs, and then we have to report or whatever. and that was just easier, but then the girl decided she wanted to go full time this year. And now, and she's all in, really, there's more hoops.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just for sport, now it's something else, and now I'm stuck, because I've issued my transcript for the first 2 years, and what those are, and they're questioning whether or not that was sufficient to do state requirements for graduation.
Right.
But that's why there's gonna be pushback on, well, what curriculum did you?
Does she want to graduate from that school?
Yeah.
Or she just wants to take courses?
She's saying she wants to. She wants to be like her friends. Is that what I'm getting?
Got it.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
No one
How
cares.
many employers
Right.
ask for a graduate, a diploma, because that, here, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't, I don't know why it matters to her.
Well, and
Well,
that's-
if
yeah.
the school would allow her to take courses and not put her on a graduation track, just the fact that she wants to be there, if they allow her to do that without you showing all the content of everything that you've ever done, the whole thing.
She wants to graduate with them.
Yeah.
And I mean, and she
Okay.
wants that, and maybe you can do that, and maybe you can't, because she's at where she's at, you know, and that is one thing that we also deal with sometimes with students.
The math.
Yeah.
Which she struggles with, and integrated math.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just ignore the emails right now.
Yeah. And you'll figure it out, and she'll figure it out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm wanting to.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll be outside if anybody wants to.
So
talk
yeah,
to
thank
us.
you everybody for coming. I hope that we were able to help
Thank
you a
you.
little bit. It's really good to be here with you. We are here the rest of the weekend. We're happy to answer any questions. Feel free to come up to us one-on-one if you see us around. And yeah, we can step outside. Is there anyone here, actually, let me just ask, is there anyone that does want to continue a conversation or have
We'll just
further
be out there.
questions? You can meet us
Yeah.
outside
Okay. Bye.
if you would like to. So thank you so much.